Welcome to the Leading the Pack podcast, where my sleep schedule is just as bad as the Bears. So, little FYI, I woke up really late today, a lot later than I really wanted to because my sleep schedule has just been shot. So, if this episode comes out a little later, that's sort of why, but I'm still planning on releasing it like Monday today on January 4th. So, there's a lot of news to get into with the NFL. A lot of firings, a lot of teams not making the playoffs, a lot of teams making the playoffs. There's a lot of stuff in the NFL going on, a lot of stuff going on with hockey. So just a little, a little thing for this week. I will be releasing 2 episodes. Today will be the football and sort of like a World Juniors episode, talking about, the World Juniors. But then Friday, I want to have a season preview, just sort of talking about hockey to, let's just get ourselves easing into the NHL season, because this is going to be a roller coaster of a season. I think Vancouver and one other team are the only teams that have confirmed NHL games in the city. So that's going to be an interesting thing. But there's a lot to talk about right now in football, World Juniors. So it's going to be Friday's episode. It's not going to be a bonus episode. I want to start doing 2 episodes a week. See how that goes. See how hard that is or not. I'm the only one working on this, so let's get this going. And if I'm talking weird, I got a canker, and it really sucks. Like, I hate it. So if that's TMI, whatever, live with it. You'll be fine. So, a lot of big games in the NFL last night. There were games that mattered, games that didn't. But there were, just to name a few, the Giants was a big game until the Washington game was bigger. But teams that weren't making it, they were like throwaway games like the Chargers and Chiefs. But the Packers and Bears, that was a pretty big game. The Cardinals and Rams, another big game, especially if the Cardinals were to win. That would have been a bigger game. Titans, Texans. What else? We got the Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Browns. So I just want to get into it, like, real quick, so I can talk about like the playoffs coming up, the playoffs. So, okay. So the first game I want to talk about, I just want to get my team out of the way first. The Green Bay Packers beating the Chicago Bears, like, pretty good. Packers got the first round bye. And for those of you that don't know yet, the way that this playoff is working, there's only one first round bye. There's only one team that gets the bye this year, and I think for the rest, Packers get that first round bye. They beat the Bears last night. Seahawks won, but that didn't matter. If the Seahawks were to lose, the Packers get that first round. What else? So, they beat the Bears, but the Bears still make the playoffs. And they beat the Bears pretty convincingly too. Like, there were times that, Mitchell Trubisky had flashes. Like, he had a really nice throw to, I think it was Moody. But he had a bomb last night. And I'm still thinking that this guy's got it. But I don't know. He's just not putting it together for the Bears. I don't think he's good enough, but they still managed to make the playoffs. He was 6-3 as a starter. I hate looking at records a lot of the times. There's records that you can look at. Like, sure, you can look at the records, but a lot of the times you have to remember record is a team thing, and the Bears usually are sort of led by their defense. They're not an offensive team, so looking at the record for Mitchell Trubisky, I'd say like that's the case that you can't really look at it, but they are still making the playoffs. They are the final wildcard seed. They made it as an 8-8 team, so that should be fun. So with them being the final wild card, they are playing the Seahawks, which the Seahawks are good. I think if that defense shows up, the Bears will always have a chance if their defense shows up and if Mitchell Trubisky isn't throwing picks. But that second thing usually happens a lot, and there's not much you can do there. It's Mitchell Trubisky at the end of the day. They still have some really good offensive weapons, like they showed it last night against the Packers. Moody's looking like he's looking like a really underrated rookie. He's not like a Justin Jefferson or whatever, but he's looking really good. You got Allen Robinson, which he's one of the best receivers in the North, but he does want out at the end of the day. He doesn't like it there. David Montgomery is still a pretty good running back. Who else? Cole Kmet is looking like a weapon each week. Jimmy Graham is, I don't know, he's Jimmy Graham at the end of the day. But they have some really good weapons, and their defense is still really good, even with a lot of the injuries that they do have. They still got Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks. They still got Danny Trevathan, Roquan Smith. They have some really good players on that defense. So if that defense, the Seattle Seahawks are beatable. They're a beatable team. Every team in the NFL is beatable. Even the best team in the NFL, the Chiefs, they're a very beatable team. And then they've shown that you can get close to beating them. So, is it impossible for the Bears to win this game? Of course not. Sports are a weird thing. Will they win it? It's gonna take a lot for them to win it. They were on a 3-game winning streak going into the playoffs, and if they kept that winning streak going into the playoffs, that's dangerous. When a team is hot right before the playoffs, that's a team that you really have to worry about, even as a wild card team. Because even if as a wild card team you get a nice hot streak going into the playoffs, you're set. Well, you're not set, but it's a really good thing having a win streak go in. But the Packers on that winning streak, getting the first round bye. Bears have to play the Seahawks, which means, and even the loss from the Bears, nice little leeway to the Cardinals game. The loss to the Cardinals is the reason why the Bears make it to the playoffs. Cardinals don't make the playoffs. The Cardinals don't beat the Rams. The Rams make the playoffs. I honestly would have loved to see the Cardinals make the playoffs. I would have loved to see Kyler Murray in a playoff game, but it didn't happen. He got injured during that game. They were saying an ankle, but it looked like he was holding his his hamstring, I think it was. But I'm not good with anatomy and all that. Don't start quoting me. I'm not. I think he was holding his hamstring. I was too busy watching the Packers game, in all honesty. But they were saying the ankle, but he was holding around his hammy. So if he was in the game, it probably would have been different. It was an 18-7 game. The Cardinals, they are an up-and-coming team. They got a really talented young quarterback. They got one of the best receivers in the league. If Kenyon Drake can perform like how he was in his first season with the Cardinals when he was traded to them, that's another good piece. They still have Christian Kirk. They had Larry Fitz out last night, so that is another big blow. You're losing the best player in your franchise, in your franchise history. That is the best player, and you're missing him last night. He might not be a world breaker anymore. He's still, 37 years old. He's still good. And he's that veteran presence. He's that piece that keeps the team together. The fact that they were missing him last night, that's a big blow. So, Cardinals lose, Bears get in. That's how it is. Cardinals don't get that final seed. What are you going to do? You got next year. This is an up-and-coming team, so Cardinals fans, I wouldn't worry about it. You draft somebody, I don't know, you draft somebody in the O-line, make that O-line a little bit better. I think they're going to be a good team. So just watch out for the Cardinals next year. Not saying that they're going to be world beaters. Not saying that they're going to not make the playoffs, but watch out for them next year. That's a team to watch out for. So, another game I really want to talk about. The Bills and Dolphins. Speaking of teams not making the playoffs, Dolphins were just so close. They were this close. You got to watch the video. That's another thing. Off topic. Realized last episode, or I'm pretty sure last episode, I was making references that you would have to have the visual. And I'm sorry to the people that listened to it and didn't understand it at all. I'm trying my best over here, okay? But the Dolphins were so close to making the playoffs, and I really wanted to see them. I don't know what it is with the Dolphins, but they're likable. Their coach is such a smart guy, and if it wasn't for Coach Flores, I don't think they'd be where they would be. If it wasn't for Coach Flores, last year they would have had the first overall pick. They could have gone 0-16 last year if it wasn't for him. He's a incredibly smart coach. Don't let the score dictate how this team is. The Bills just came out to play. The Bills are a fantastic team. They're really good. They look really good. Josh Allen is really coming into his own. Like each year that he plays, he's looking even better. And this year, he took not a big step. He took a huge step. Then they go out and get Stephon Diggs. Now they even just signed Kenny Stills. That's a team that's hard to beat. And if the Dolphins were to play either other team in the NFC, I think they would have made the playoffs. They got stuck with Sorry, did I say NFC? If they were playing somebody else in their division and they're in the AFC East, they probably would have made the playoffs. But they played not only the best team in their division, they played one of the best teams in the NFL right now. So that was just really tough for them to. It was going to be tough no matter what, even if they did come out with the win. What else? So, Tom Brady gets his 40th touchdown last night. I don't know. Good for him. They didn't. So with the Buccaneers game, one big piece that came out, other than Tom Brady getting his 40th touchdown, Mike Evans is the first player in NFL history to start off his career with 7 straight 1,000-yard seasons. That's fantastic. He's injured now, so they're probably going to be missing him for the big game, which they have some really good. Mike Evans, it's a big loss because it's Mike Evans, but they still got Chris Godwin. Antonio Brown has 3 straight touchdowns in 3 straight games, so you got those 2 guys. You still got O.J. Howard, or is he injured? I don't know. I haven't heard that guy's name in so long. You got Rojo, and then Tom Brady. So Tom Brady can pull games out of nowhere if you wanted to. That's going to be, if he wins the Super Bowl this year, I am going to be so disappointed. I don't want to be biased or anything, but if he wins again, I just don't want to see that. Like, who wants to see him win again? Like, oh my God. So just give me a second because I'm trying to pull up the, what's it called? The playoff games. Because I don't know where I can find them. Because I'm trying to figure out who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play. I think they were the first wild card. I think they were the first wild card, so they play the third team. No, yeah, the third seed. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so they play the Washington football team. I feel like that's gonna be a tough game. Because Washington has been looking really good. But so have the Buccaneers. Buccaneers have the better schedule. The Washington football team finished 7-9. But Washington has a really good defense. Honestly, I'd probably pick the Buccaneers for that game. Washington's a really good QB away from being a really good team. They don't have that really good QB yet. I think it's going to be Smith playing that game. So that's going to be a tough game. I think the Buccaneers have that game. But that I want to talk about that at another, like, after I go through all the games. I'll go through the playoff pictures and all that. Cowboys and Giants. I'm going to talk about that one real quick. That was disappointing to see the Giants not make the playoffs at 6-10. I was really hoping for them because, like, I don't know what it is with the Giants. The Packers usually play them. Not usually, but they play them. They're in the same conference as the Packers, and yet I wanted to see them make the playoffs at 6-10. I don't know what it is. That division is just a joke, and I really wanted to see it just be 6-10 because a double-digit team making the playoffs to me is just hilarious. But also, there's guys on that team that I actually like. But the Giants won the game last night, so they were leading the division at 1 point. But Washington did beat Philadelphia. Philadelphia benching Hurts when they needed to win. Really starting to question Doug Peterson. Don't know what's going on with him. He is just he's not I think he's overthinking everything, cuz like he's an aggressive guy, but it's getting to a point where he's being way too aggressive with everything. Or it's either he's really aggressive or he's just or he's laid back with his plays. Don't know what benching Hurts was. That was kind of a stupid play. Wentz didn't go in. I don't know if he was injured or if he just if he's just sitting out, or how bad the situation is with Wentz and Peterson. But Hurts was sat. Eagles lost because, of course, when you sit, your good QB and bring in your backups back up, it's gonna end up like that. So Washington makes the playoffs. Now they're gonna be playing the Buccaneers. Ooh, what else we got? Titans make the playoffs and win their division. That's not much to say other than, the Colts would have had the division if the Texans held on and beat the Titans. Ravens make the playoffs. Ravens make the playoffs. Sure, they beat the Bengals 30-3. The Bengals are without Joe Burrow. Whatever. I just want to give everybody a round of applause right now. The Browns made the playoffs. For the first time. Hold on. For the first time since 2002, the Browns made the playoffs. This team went 0-16. What was it? 3 years ago? 3 or 4 years ago? A couple years ago, they had a record with the two combined seasons of 1-31. They went from that to making the playoffs. I might be a Packers fan, but so happy to see the Browns make the playoffs. And if they win, who are they playing? They play the Steelers. The team that they just beat this week, they play them again next week. I'll get to that with the playoff predictions in a bit. Hold on. What else we got? I don't think there is really many other games to talk about. Chiefs, the Chargers, that didn't matter. Saints beat the Panthers, but Packers had the tiebreaker for that. What else? Jets, Patriots. Patriots not making the playoffs for the first time since 2008. That's a beauty. I'm sorry, that's a beauty. That's incredible. I guess they didn't need Tom Brady, either that or it's just a huge scheme in Bill Belichick's plan to get a new QB. I don't know what Belichick's up to. Don't trust that guy. They're going to draft the QB in the first round. They're going to be world beaters again. So what does it matter? They also need new receivers. That's another thing. Their receivers I don't know if it was on purpose. But if I'm not mistaken, I saw a stat. Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams had 18 touchdowns. And if I'm not mistaken, the entirety of the Patriots wide receivers only had 8. That's questionable. I don't know what Belichick was up to there because I don't trust that guy at all. I don't think that for how good of a coach he is, that team should have still made the playoffs. That team should have been a wild card team if you ask me. But there's not really any other games to talk about. Every other game was just really for a playoff for drafting. That I'll get into another time. But the Jets really botched their chances of getting Trevor Lawrence. I feel like that might have helped them a little bit better. I don't see a reason for them to pick Justin Fields with that pick. I didn't really see a reason to pick Trevor Lawrence even with that pick, to be honest with you, or with the first overall pick. I'm gonna spit out a hot take. I think Sam Darnold is good enough. The only reason why he's not good enough, why people don't say he's not good enough, is because he's on the Jets. When you're on the Jets, you're, how do I say it, kid friendly. There's a chance your career might go to the shits. I'm just going to put it out there. Listen, my dad was a Jets fan. I want them to be a good team, but they're not a good team. Even Trevor Lawrence couldn't have fixed this team this year. What they needed was a new coach, a O-line, they needed receivers, they needed a running back, they needed everything. They didn't need another QB. So let's just get that out of the way right now. So the Jets don't get the first overall pick. Trevor Lawrence is going to the Jaguars. What they do, I want to get to the playoffs. So now I want to do, how much time do I got left actually? We got some time, I could do it. So playoff preview for this week. Where are the games? So they're right here. So we got the wild card weekend coming up. 3 games each. 3 games on Saturday. 3 games on Sunday. This is going to be an incredible weekend of football. So the Saturday games, we got Colts playing the Colts in Buffalo on Saturday. We got the Rams in Seattle, and then the Buccaneers in Washington. So let's get with the Saturday games first. So Colts and Buffalo, that's gonna be a really good game. You got the Colts with one of the best defenses in the league, and then the Bills with, they still have a good defense. They didn't perform like how they did last year, where that defense really led them to the playoffs. But Bills are really good. The Bills are a really good team overall. Colts have a really good defense. They have really great offensive pieces. I don't think that's their game. I think this is the Bills' game to lose. I'm taking the Bills that game. I think Josh Allen has been really good right now. Stephon Diggs has been amazing with the Bills. He's really broken out. They just signed Kenny Stills, so they got another really good. They got another good piece on offense. Josh Brown, another good receiver. Devin Singletary, the running game hasn't been, they haven't been world beaters at running, but Devin Singletary, he can have a really good game this week. I do think it comes down to Josh Allen and his receivers when it comes to the offense. That's usually how it is. They're better in the air than they are on the ground. Their defense, if they can hold off Phillip Rivers, which a lot of the times it's not that hard, that guy can either be either can have an MVP caliber game or he can throw like 3 picks. It depends what Phillip Rivers is doing this week for the Colts. If we get 3-pick Phillip Rivers, that's the Bills' game. If he plays like how he can play, like how we've seen him play before, like his MVP caliber games, the Colts can win it. I still think that's Buffalo's game. We got the Rams and Seahawks. I'm going to be honest with you. After that Jets game, I think the Rams are frauds. I don't think they are that good of a team. They have one of my favorite players in Aaron Donald. That guy's just a tank. You shouldn't be losing games like how they did against the Jets with Aaron Donald on your team. That guy, he can take over games like it's nothing. They still have a good defense. They have Jared Goff, if he can put it together like consistently, like how he did in 2017, that's a dangerous team. That's a dangerous team. But I don't know. It's a tough game because even the Seahawks, they've had stinkers. They've had really bad stinkers, the Seahawks. Russell Wilson, going into the year, everybody was saying he was the MVP. No. Let's get that out of the way. No. He had an MVP case at the beginning of the year, sure, of course. But there's games where he can have really bad games. Same thing with Jared Goff. I don't know what it would come down to because, like, at the end of the day, if Blitzboy Jamal Adams has a good game, if the Seahawks defense, comes up big, their defense has been a lot better since they got Carlos Dunlap, so I will give them that. If their defense can put it together, that's the Seahawks game because their offense is great. They have a future Hall of Famer in Russell Wilson. DK Metcalf is looking really good. They still have what's his name? The other receiver, number 16. Tyler Lockett. They still have Tyler Lockett, which I think that's their best option. Just saying that. Carlos Hyde has looked really good in games. And then Russell Wilson, that guy can take over. You have two players on each team that can take over a game. You got you got a player on each team that can take over a game. You got Russ, and then you got AD. I think, Russell Wilson, even if Aaron Donald plays like how great he can, it's Russell Wilson, one of the best scrambling QBs, one of the best mobile QBs, and he's got some really good weapons with him. I think that's the Seahawks game. I'm going to take the Seahawks for that game. That game could also go either way, depending on like which Rams we see. Is it going to be the New York Jets Rams or the Rams that I think they beat the Seahawks a couple weeks ago. So it depends on which Rams we see, but I'm taking the Seahawks for that game. Buccaneers at Washington. This is a tough game because we have two really good defenses in this game and then one team with a really good offense. We have one team that's built a lot better compared to the other. The only difference is if it depends on Washington's QB play because Washington is a good QB away from being a really good team. They had a really good QB. They had consistent QB play. They would have been above 500 instead of making the playoffs at 7-9. Their pass rush is just incredible. Chase Young, Montez Sweat. Why am I forgetting names today? Chase Young, Montez Sweat, and Ryan Kerrigan. Why am I forgetting names today? If those two guys come up big, if those two guys have a really good game, if their pass rush plays really well, we might see Washington beat the Buccaneers. It's sort of an upset. If it does, it's so weird. This division is just so bad. Like, the Buccaneers have the better record, and yet they have to go to Washington to play. That's I don't know, this playoff format. Honestly, I kind of like it because I like seeing games like this. I like seeing teams below 500 make the playoffs. I like to see the world burn a bit. I'm like that. But I think the Buccaneers. I'm thinking the Buccaneers that game, even though I don't want to see them win. I'll be secretly cheering for Washington, but I'm taking the Buccaneers that game. So the Sunday games, we got the Ravens at Titans for the first game. Then we got the Bears at Saints for the second game. And then the final game for the Sunday, final game for wildcard weekend, is the Browns and Steelers. Start off with the Ravens and Titans. That's a closer game. We saw them play last year. It was a different situation. The Ravens were the... were the second seed, I think it was. No, they were the first seed last year. Sorry. But They played the Titans last year. Not wildcard weekend, but they did play the Titans last year. Titans came out on top, even with the Ravens having home field advantage. But home field advantage doesn't really mean a thing now because, there's no fans. But for that game, it's going to be a good game, depending on if the Ravens can stop the Titans, then I will take the Ravens. If the Ravens can stop Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and his receivers play well and the running game plays well, that's the Ravens game. The Titans are on paper better. They don't have the better QB. I will say that. When it comes to QBs, I'm taking Lamar Jackson over Ryan Tannehill, even though Ryan Tannehill, he's looked good with the Titans. The running game is different because, you got 2,000-yard receiver Derrick Henry on your team. That guy is just incredible. He's a specimen to watch. But then the receivers. See, the Ravens, if their receivers can put it together, like if Hollywood Brown can put it together, if he can, figure out how to run a route, Des Bryant has actually looked good with the Ravens, and I'm happy for him, especially with everything he's gone through. And if Lamar Jackson, if he uses his legs, that's the Ravens game. Titans, like I said last week, they don't have the greatest pass defense. The Ravens have Lamar Jackson can throw a ball. I don't care what people say. He can throw a ball. He's a QB for a reason. He knows how to throw a ball. It's just that there's a lot of times where his receivers, they haven't been too reliable. I think if, Hollywood Brown picks it up this week, I think that's the Ravens game, if you ask me. That game can go 50-50. I think this is the closest game other than the Browns-Steelers, this is probably the closest game. I'm going to take the Ravens on this one. And I know I know in a way this is a hot take. I'm going to take the Ravens on this one. I think with their defense, they can shut down Derrick Henry. If Calais Campbell plays really well. Yannick Ngakoue, actually, you know what? I'm going to take it back. I think the Titans are going to run all over. I think Derrick Henry's going to run over the Ravens like he did last year. I'm going to take the Titans on this one instead of the Ravens. I don't know. The Ravens just don't look as good as they did last year. So, next game, Bears-Saints. As a Packers fan, I'm just going to say this right now. I'm sorry, Bears fans. Actually, I'm not sorry, Bears fans. I'm not picking the Bears. I'm going to take the Saints on this one. Even if the Bears played Washington, I'm picking Washington, even though the Bears had a better record than them. I don't think I'm not going to say they don't have a chance against the Saints because they're missing Michael Thomas. I think they're missing Kamara for this week too. I don't know if he was just out or for the playoff for the game. I don't know if he was just out for this week. I can't remember. I should probably, I should know these things. There's a lot going on. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. But if the Bears beat the Saints and you bet the Bears to beat the Saints, you're a rich man. You're a rich man. Even though I have no idea how betting works and I don't care for it. But that's the Saints game to lose. You're playing probably the worst team in the playoffs right now. If the Saints lose like they do against Minnesota, they just have a bad time against the NFC North. It's not even just against Minnesota. But the Saints are at home, even though home field advantage, again, doesn't mean anything. But you're at home. You're playing the Bears. Even if you don't have Michael Thomas, you still have Emmanuel Sanders, and he looked pretty good this week. You still got the better QB. You don't got the better receivers. I will give them that. Even if Michael Thomas was, available or wasn't injured, Bears have the better receivers. But You have the better running back. You have the better QB. You have the better O-line. Your defense is good. You should beat the Bears. Just going to put that out there. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I got other things to talk about. I'm taking the Saints that game. The last game for the wild card weekend, you got the Browns at the Steelers. And you saw what happened this week. Steelers were starting to come back, but they lost at the end. So now the Browns got to play the Steelers. I'm going to say this right now. I'm taking the Browns. Steelers were 11-0 at one point. I know. They didn't lose. They beat the Colts. I know. Great. I still think that the Browns beat them. I think the Browns should have everybody back by then with the COVID list, unless there's like more guys put on the COVID list. I think that's the Browns game. That was their division to lose. Or not the division. Sorry. They had a chance to win the division, but they lost to the Jets. But they were down a lot of players. They had no receivers that game. They got Nick Chubb. They got Kareem Hunt. Jarvis Landry. I think Peoples-Jones has been playing really good. Baker Mayfield if Baker Mayfield plays like how he did this week and plays how he has in past weeks, that's the Browns game. I'm going to take the Browns that game. I'm throwing a hot take. I'm throwing a flaming hot take. The Browns are taking this game. The Browns are going to win a playoff game in 2020. Sorry, 2021. I forgot what year it was. We're only 4 days into it. Let me get used to this. But the Browns are winning that game. And depending on who they play the week after, I think they'll win that game too. Watch out for the Browns. I'm gonna die on that hill. The Browns are a good team this year. Let's go Browns for this weekend. So I'm taking the Browns that game. So that's just this weekend for the playoff pictures or for the wildcard weekend. What's going on with my laptop? Okay. Then we got how much time we got left? Because I want to talk about the World Juniors real quick. I'll talk about it for like another 10 minutes. So we got the World Juniors. Canada's playing today. Canada's gonna be playing in half an hour. So hopefully I'll have the episode out by then. Or not half an hour. They're playing 3 hours. Sorry, that's pregame. 3.5. You know, math is hard for a guy who's just at home doing nothing during quarantine. Canada plays Russia today. They've looked really good going into today's game against Russia. Russia's look good, but Canada's look better. They have scored a lot. Their game against the who did they play last? The Czechs. The Czechs came out really. They came out playing against the Canada well. Their goalie was looking good. No wait, yeah, it was the Czechs. Their goalie was looking good. At the end of the day, Canada's still Canada, so they had to come out on top. This is probably their toughest opponent yet. It was Finland. I would have said it was Finland. Like I would have continued to say it was Finland, but they didn't look as good. Like Slovakia played better than Finland against Canada. But Canada came out on top against the Czechs, of course. Quentin Byfield has been looking really good with Canada. He's going to be a star in the NHL. He's going to be amazing for the Kings. Like the Kings got a stud right there. Dylan Cousins looking just really coming. He can take over a game. I say take over a game way too much. I gotta find different lingo. But Dylan Cousins also looking really good. Jamie Drysdale and Byron Boehm. How did the Colorado Avalanche manage to draft Byron Boehm? Like, what happened for that to happen? That guy's gonna the Colorado Avalanche are gonna have a decor led by Boehm Byram and Kel McCarr. I'm sorry to headphone users, but I had to slam my head on the mic because like that's unfair. Boehm Byram looks incredible, and him playing with Jamie Drysdale, like the Anaheim Ducks got a really good defenseman. I was saying that the Ottawa Senators should draft them over Anderson, but They took Sanderson. Jamie Drysdale looking really good. Schneider's back, but I would have liked to see more of Spence. That's his name, right? Just Spence. But Devin Levi too. Like, that guy came out of nowhere. I don't even think he was supposed to be starting the tournament. Like, they didn't know who the starter was really going into it, but Devin Levi wasn't supposed to be it. He is looking like really good. I don't even think he was drafted. Yeah, he was an unsigned goalie. He was signed by the Florida Panthers. I don't know where this guy came from, but he's looking really good with Canada right now. He's just a brick wall back there. Knock on wood. But he's looking really good for Canada. Hopefully he continues that going into the game. Canada beating Russia, happened last year. I think Russia is going to be looking for like revenge for what happened last year at the World Juniors, but this is Canada's tournament to lose no matter what. They have the most first round picks in I think ever, if I'm not mistaken. Like, their entire forward lineup is just all first round picks. And then you got a bunch more on defense. I think this is Canada's game to lose. This is Canada's tournament to lose, to be honest. Not even be honest with you. This is Canada's tournament to lose, and that's it. So, that's about all I have to really say about the World Juniors. There's not much more I can talk about because, like, the game hasn't happened yet. They haven't really played an opponent I think that you can really get into with. I think this is their first, like, real test. Sorry, this is their second test, but, like, now there's no more tests because the round robin's done. They beat Finland They beat Finland convincingly. They look really good against Finland for how good Finland is. Can they do that against Russia? Of course. Canada just has to. They have to limit the amount of shots because, like, well, they can do that, but there are games where it's a closer game with teams that it shouldn't be close with, like the Czechs. Slovakia was close with for Canada standards, which is incredible for Canada. That's to say for Canada standards. They should beat Russia. There's not much more to say. They should win the gold medal. It's gold medal or bust every year, but especially this year. So that's all I really have to talk about this week for sports. Well, sorry, for today for sports, because I'm going to do a little recap. Friday, I'm going to have something else come out. I'm going to record that, sometime this week. I'm not going to record it on Friday because, like, today I woke up late. So, sorry for that again, for why this episode is going to be coming out late. Even though I don't have an actual schedule yet, like a scheduled time for the podcast, because, like, at the end of the day, I want to try and have them out 3:30, but sleep schedule is shot. So look out for another episode this week. I'm going to be doing a season preview for the NHL. I'm going to try not to be too biased, but at the end of the day, when I get to the Habs and the Bruins, I might show my bias a bit. I'm sorry. And it's not going to be being like a good bias towards them. Like, when I get to the Habs, I'm going to try so hard not to shit on them. So look out for an NHL season preview. I'm going to have a different background for that. I'm going to get all my NHL jerseys ready for it. And when you see a Habs jersey, don't worry about it. For those of you who know, I got it on sale. Whatever. But look out for a season preview for the NHL season coming up. Going to be going into I'm going to go into a lot of things because there's a lot of news, and I'm doing this very last minute. So, if you enjoyed it, like the video, like the podcast on Spotify. I'm still waiting for Apple Music to approve, but it's all approved for Spotify and every other streaming service. But look out for the podcast to come out on Spotify, SoundCloud, and on YouTube if you want to watch the video version. I'm getting better at this, I think, for the second episode. Yeah. Follow me on Instagram, at Bonavota, Bonavota. Follow me on Twitter at Bonavoda_ with a capital B. Follow the podcast on Instagram at leadingthepackpod. I also got a Twitter, but I don't really use it that much, honestly. I just tweet out the links for everything. But if you want to get the links easier, follow me on Twitter. I'll tweet all the links for where you can find the podcast. But yeah, that's about it. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter. Follow the podcast on Instagram and Twitter. And if anybody wants to sponsor the podcast, I got available space. I got an extra 15 minutes I can use. But that's all for today. Ciao.